From the University of Maryland's Robert H. Smith School of Business, this is the Smith Report, Summer Edition. I'm Carrie Handworker in the Office of Marketing Communications. Each week this summer, we'll feature a conversation with a Maryland Smith MBA student working as an intern. This week, we're chatting with Rachel Loya. She's a summer associate in the Corporate Development Program at Boston-based Liberty Mutual, but she's working from home in Northern Virginia. Good morning, Rachel. Thanks for joining us today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're up to this summer?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. So this summer, I am working virtually from my home in Virginia, and I am part of the Corporate Development Program at Liberty Mutual Insurance, which is based out of Boston.
So what does that mean? What do you get to do as a corporate development intern, even if it's from home?
Yeah, so the Corporate Development Program at Liberty is one of those formal leadership development programs that a lot of MBAs get to experience. So typically when you're with the company full time, you have the opportunity to rotate every 6 months into a different part of the business and get exposure into different business lines. What it looks like for a summer associate is a little different because we're only with the company for about 10 to 12 weeks. So this summer, I've been placed on a product team within underwriting effectiveness and compliance, and I'm essentially serving as an internal consultant for the company. There's a business problem that they've presented me, and over the summer, I do research, interviews, and at the end, in the conclusion, I present essentially my recommendations and findings of what I think Liberty Mutual should do moving forward.
Cool. Sounds like you'll have some big impact. Are you working with other interns or with colleagues at Liberty Mutual? What's your typical work group look like, and how are you working with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm part of a cohort. There's about 25 interns within the program itself from all different universities all over the country. However, none of us work on the same project together. We're all working on completely different business problems, but all doing the same style of work, just in different parts of the business. So when it comes to the individuals I'm interacting with on a daily basis, I have a manager who's a senior product owner on my team, as well as an assignment manager or a mentor, someone who's more directly overlooking the work that I'm doing. But generally, I'm working autonomously on a project, and it's on me to take the initiative essentially to find the correct stakeholders and work with the right people to get the information I need to work on my problem.
When does your internship wrap up, and what's your big deliverable? Are you wrapping that up now, putting your finishing touches?
Yeah, so I'm actually at the closing stages. My last day is actually on Friday, which is wild because I feel like I just started. But in terms of closing deliverables, there are a couple different components you have that go into your overall evaluation. One of them being a final presentation to executive leadership. And that presentation is very much so in the style of a consulting presentation where you come in and you say, this is the situation and the business problem. This is the efforts I took over the summer. This is my recommendation. And then I like to include a little bit of personal learnings and things that I took away from the experience because it's also about my summer and what I learned at the company. So I had that last week. It went well, which was great. It was a huge relief to get to have that finished. And then this week I actually have a final interview and then I'll be done.
What's your typical day like working from home? How do you typically interact with others and get through the day?
Yeah, so my typical day, I tend to start pretty early. So I'm a morning person and I also have a dog, so I wake up relatively early. So I normally start my day on a more personal note, going for a long walk with my dog, having my morning coffee, having breakfast at home. That's kind of the nice thing about virtuals, your commutes to your living room or your bedroom. So I normally log on around 9 o'clock in the morning. And throughout the course of the day, it really just depends what's going on and what I have in the pipeline. I've been really fortunate in that, prior to working at Liberty, I had zero insurance experience and zero product owner experience. So I've had the opportunity to sit in on a lot of meetings and just learn about that job function and what the day in the life of a product owner looks like, which has been really fascinating for me. Knew nothing about it going into it. So there's that one piece, training and learning. And then there's also the component of doing project work. So I normally have a series of meetings, with other stakeholders. A lot of the work I'm doing this summer, my end consumer is a data analyst. So I've had to have a lot of meetings with the different data analysts within the organization. And then I normally am someone who just likes to block out my calendar to do work. It's a little bit selfish, but it's a good way to keep yourself on task and get things done. So I normally have a couple hours blocked out each day where I'm working on different pieces of the project.
How did you get the internship?
That's actually a really great question, because I kind of stumbled upon it a little bit. So I, in my MBA recruiting experience, was looking at a lot of leadership development programs. I was looking at consulting. It was more that I was looking for like a style of work. I wanted something that was analytical, problem solving, and I wanted to be at an organization that had a good company culture. So I was almost like very open to trying anything. And it actually was at an event that was being hosted this past fall. I was working an event at the Office of Career Services, and I ran into a second year who was a year older than me and said, "How's your career search going? What companies are you looking at? What are you looking to do?" And I was a little stressed at the time and was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm kind of applying to everything. I'm not really sure. And this second year really brought me back down to planet Earth and was like, it's okay. This is what everyone's going through. And he said, based on the types of work that you said you're doing, this is a program that I interviewed at last year. It was a really great experience. Their interview process is challenging and difficult. So I think it would be a good experience for you to go through the interview process regardless, just because it's a good way to sharpen some skills and, it's a case interview and things like that. So why don't you go for it? So I said, you know what? I'm already applying to 5,000 companies. Let's just add another one to the list. So I did, based on his recommendation, and I actually made it through the whole interview process, was contacted by a recruiter over winter break and ended up going up to Boston in January. So it was I would never have applied for this program had I not kind of been pushed by someone else to say, this is a good experience, you should do this. So very grateful and fortunate for that. And then, as I was going through the interview process, something that I found that was super helpful was, leveraging existing Smith alumni within the Liberty Mutual network. So there are a couple of MBA students who are currently full-time employees there that I really took the time to vet the company, talk to them, learn about their experience, learn about the program. So that was really helpful as well.
And finally, what advice do you have for incoming MBA students?
Yeah, so I know incoming MBA students are kind of coming into this program in a different world and a different time. So I think that this is a hard question to answer. So I'm going to kind of take this more from a career opportunity point of view, in that you don't have to have everything figured out right when school starts. It took me a really long time, one, to even find the job opportunity that I'm at and even solidify an offer there. So I think just in general, I would recommend trusting the process, be patient with yourself, and take this time to really be introspective and think about what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses and what you'd really like to get out of a career. Because I think there's very few times in your life where you can really press pause on everything else and think about yourself.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for joining us, Rachel. We've loved hearing about your internship and your how you're balancing the work from home with really getting a lot of learning in this summer. So thank you again for joining us and sharing your story with us. That's our conversation with Maryland Smith MBA student Rachel Loya, who's interning this summer with Liberty Mutual. Thanks, Rachel, for sharing your experience with us. And thanks to you for tuning in. From the University of Maryland's Robert H. Smith School of Business, I'm Carrie Handworker in the Office of Marketing Communications.